Chicago, Chicago, that toddling town, Chicago, Chicago, I'll show you around.
The corner was our magic, our music, our politics. Fires raised as tribal dances and war cries broke out on different corners. Power to the people.
And just say Shot City. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about Shot Town. And just say Shot City, Shot City.
Ujjayi, everyone. How are you all? Welcome to another episode of the Sunnyside podcast. My name is Giziribtah, and I'm so happy to have you all with us today. And we also have
Nehez, Meniooh, you know me. This is episode 31. We're in the middle of a series where we're really trying to honor elders. The elders in our communities, the elders in our family. We can see that the society we live in, the modern societies around the world, the way they treat elders, the way they treat human beings in general is suspect, sus, like the youth say. But specifically the elders. Today we are bringing this episode out on January 1st, the new year. It's not our new year, but in any indigenous society, at the turn of a cycle, we always look back at the year that just passed, what transpired, what happened, and try to gain wisdom to face the new year. And when we look back over the year, you find that the suicide rates of our elders is going up because they feel like they're not useful anymore. Mm-hmm. They have no more purpose. They've been put aside into retirement homes, into nursing homes. They've been isolated from their families. And on the Sunnyside, we really wanted to confront that.
Absolutely. It's very discouraging to see how the modern society deals with the elderly or anything that it doesn't feel is useful anymore. It just simply discards it instead of finding the benefit of things that are in their prime. We discard it, throw it away, hide it away, tuck it in a box and pretend it doesn't exist. And that's how our elderly are being treated. And you see in traditional culture, the elders are elevated, they're honored. Everyone gravitates towards them because they want to learn, they want to study, they want to be able to get the wisdoms that they are still holding and that we can all benefit from. But the modern society takes the complete opposite approach, and not just with elderly, but with everything.
And we're saying modern society, but I don't want to sound like we are bringing this from a perspective of victimhood, because the reality is, and the more alarming thing is that we do this to our elders.
Oh, sure.
But in the traditions, we say the cough of our elders should be a reminder. And the fact is, we all are going to become elders if we're lucky. And every day we have our dreams, we have our ambitions about how we're going to be successful, as if those same elders didn't have the same thing. And those same elders didn't chase the same thing. And where they ended up was being isolated from their families. Where they end up is being isolated in a room in a retirement home with their favorite couch and their favorite TV. And we think that we're going to march on the same path to a different destination, but paths only go to where they go. And so we as individuals who care about ourselves, who care about our elders, who care about our children, have to stand up regardless of what the modern society is doing, is encouraging, and say, I'm going to value my elders because I value the experience that they've accumulated, and I want to learn from that, and I want to show them that I value them, I honor them, because I want the same thing done for me when I get old enough. I don't want to be pushed aside like garbage. Mm-hmm. So that's really what this series was about. We spoke last episode to esteemed elder in the community, Haki Madabudi. All the work that he's been doing, he had a wealth of knowledge and experiences, and just trying to bring some dignity, education, knowledge to the Black community of Chicago. And this episode we'll be speaking to Elder Anthony Cole. not so much because he's an elder, though he is, but because he's invested and active in genealogy work, which is highlighting, valuing, giving a platform to the elders of his family. He's showing us how to value elders, how to make sure they feel valuable in the family, and make sure their wisdom is guiding future generations of the family. So it's really a very important episode, one that's very dear to my heart. It's going to be great to hear what the brother has to say.
Yeah, I'm excited about it as well. Genealogy is something you find like maybe one or two people in every family takes a great pride in knowing their genealogy, studying it, and sharing it with the rest of the family. But to be honest, like the masses always seem like, okay, here that person comes again with their stories or with their recorder or however they choose to give honor and try to preserve the principles of their family heritage. They don't seem to be valued until, like you just stated, until you get to sit in that seat of an elder.
Exactly.
That's when you like, oh, well, somebody should be valuing me or honoring me or taking care of me or serving me or listening to me, respecting me. All of those things, you don't realize it until you're in that seat.
Exactly. And from my own experiences, when you're doing it, when you're trying to accumulate more information about the family, you're trying to find out more information about our relatives who have passed on, and you get to talk to elders, you see them start to light up. And you see the stories they have, and you see the excitement they have when you come back to them and you want to hear more. There was a time where I was calling elders like on a weekly basis, getting stories. And it's elders. You might have to listen to the same story a few times, but you see how it lights them up, and then you see what you're also benefiting from in receiving those kind of, tidbits and family history and secrets in the family and all of that. So it's really something that is so important to our own identity, to who we are. A lot of times in this fast-paced society of, how am I going to become successful? Just doing the small work to really learn yourself, learn where you're coming from, learn the family that you're in, learn the principles it was living by, learn what was important to your grandparents, to your great-grandparents. It's something so fundamental that we a lot of times hop over.
Absolutely. And that's why I think a lot of children these days really just don't like history, because everything that's we're taught about in the African American standpoint, historically is always starting at the point of slavery.
Depressing.
Starting at things that it's like nobody wants to honor, revisit, remember, and discuss that at length. It's like that's not where our history begins, nor should we start educating our youth, our children, even ourselves on our history starting from that point.
Right. Especially when, even on the other side, there's a history of resilience that has come out of that. But even I think what you're alluding to is that beyond that point, there's a huge history of greatness, of, amazing information. And today's episode is also being published on a traditional holiday, a very old holy day, which was the original idea of a holiday that has been celebrated in Africa, the continent of Africa, and the indigenous societies for a long time, called the embalmment of Wisser, or the embalmment of Osiris. And as you can tell, anybody who's familiar with the name Osiris, that holy day is going all the way back to Nile Valley civilization and culture. And it's a day that honors the death of Wisser when he was being prepared for burial. And Wisser really represents our ancestral divinity, or a divine being kind of in charge of our ancestry, in charge of life on earth for human beings, who educated human beings, brought civilization to human beings, taught human beings agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, spirituality, how to be clean, how to be civilized. And today is the day that he was embalmed. So today really represents the day to preserve our ancestors, preserve our ancestral legacy. And it's really spent in a day of prayer and lamentation, really thinking about what our ancestral legacy means to us, what our life means in the perspective of our greater ancestral legacy and the greater self.
Yeah, and just speaking on the notion of a holy day. You know, we've moved away from holy days. Things that are sacred, things are based upon astronomy, based upon history, based upon our own ourselves, our spirit, and our essence. However, now we celebrate holidays, and again, they're always like the opposite of the things that we should be honoring. Just as like the death of Whistler comes on the third month, the 17th day of the third month. What day is the 17th day of the third month in the modern calendar? That's St. Patrick's Day. That's the day you're supposed to drunk, all the craziest things you want to do in society. That's the day that you do it. But that's the saddest day for humanity, should be.
And even the death of Whistler falls right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So the day all the families come together and give thanks is the day that your ancestors were mourning the loss of, this divine spirit that comes to redeem humanity. And we all feel his loss. We all can see how human civilization is kind of degenerating. Our values are degenerating. And on that day when we mourn that, the saddest day of the world, now the new modern perspective has us giving thanks.
Absolutely.
And then we even can see we're giving thanks on a day that really represents the slaughter of indigenous people in this land. But when you look back further, that was the day you mourn the fact that, the good, what represents the goodness of the human legacy, whoever brought it dies that day.
Absolutely.
So it's really interesting. And for those who, are new to the podcast, not that familiar with the Earth Center, the holy days we're talking about are coming from the original calendar. I know it's the new year today, and if you follow the Gregorian calendar, Happy New Year. It's not our new year, but it's the new year for some. But the original calendar, the new year falls on September 11th. And we are now in the 4th month. And as I said, today is the embalmment of Whistler. So I wish everybody, courage and support from your ancestral spirit so that you as a living being today can really investigate that ancestral spirit. And that's really what we'll be getting into today, where it starts, to really start by investigating and learning from the elders in your family, and then the stories, the information that they have to pass on to you about those that came before you. Because those that came before you, your ancestors, your dead relatives, really live inside of you. You are their expression today in the living world, their manifestation today in the living world. So learning about them is really learning about yourself. So it will be a very important episode. Stay tuned.
Let's go.
I'd like to welcome our guest, Elder Anthony Cole, genealogist that's here with us today. Welcome, Elder.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm pleased and honored to be asked to come speak about genealogy.
Yes, definitely. It's so important, and it's important to us specifically right now. I mean, genealogy is one of my passions. It's one thing that I really feel attached to. Even since I was young, I had a project in high school that really got me going, and then I talked to my grandma, and then it was like she just brought out more and more and more stuff, and even like freedom papers and all this that was just in the attic I knew nothing about. So since then I've had a love for it, but we really wanted to address it on the podcast because a lot of people aren't aware of how important it is for families, to bring families together, even living relatives together, but also to bring us closer to the spirits of our dead relatives that have passed. How did you get started?
I was aware that there was a family reunion planned in 1996. And I thought the family branch that was planning the reunion had married into my family. And I didn't particularly want to go because I told my sister, Valerie, I said, I don't need to take my few vacation days and to go meet a bunch of strangers. I meet a bunch of strangers through my job every day. So she said, no, you need to go to this family reunion. So she pressed me about going. And while we were on the plane, going down to New Orleans or Gulfport, Mississippi, she pulls out a family tree chart. And I'm looking at the family tree chart. I see my parents and my grandparents on it, and then I see my grandparents' siblings on it. And then one of the siblings was Eliza Ladner. My grandma was Bertha Ladner, and then she married a Cole. But anyway, so it comes down, and I see these people I thought had married into my family. No, these my cousin. So the people who were organizing the family reunion, turns out, they were the grandchildren of my grandmother's sister. And I said, my God, how can I be that ignorant of my own family relations? And I guess I hate ignorance with a passion, I guess. And the fact that I was ignorant of my own family relationships just astounded me, so to speak. So I went to the family reunion and, had a good time and all that. But when I came back, my dear wife, Evelyn, had just taken a class with Tony Burrows. He wrote a book called Black Roots, I think is the name of it.
Black Roots.
And so I was, peeling back her brain, layer after layer, whatever she had learned about genealogy. So that was the spark, the fact that I was that ignorant about my family relationships. I was just kind of astounded that I would be that ignorant about my relationship with cousins and things. And what had happened, these particular cousins, I didn't meet till I was a teenager.
Okay.
So that was
met them before though.
I hadn't met them until I was a teenager.
I see.
So that's the other thing kind of threw me off. I said, oh, these folks that are married into my family. But the family is big, as they say. So speaking of big, I did a DNA test. And the DNA results came back from Ancestry DNA, and it said I had over 1,000 cousins that had taken the test that were related to me, fourth cousins or closer.
Wow.
I said, my God.
Man.
So my second great grandparents had 16 children.
Okay.
So one of my uncles told me one time, I was trying to show him a picture that I said, do you recognize, who is this? Who is this? He looked, and he looked at me, and he looked again. He said, they wanted the tribe. They wanted the tribe, cuz. So the tribe, our tribes are big. Our clans, our family groupings tend to be very large. We have two parents. We have four parents. Two parents, four grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and 16 great-great-grandparents. So it just multiplies. So anyway, that's how I got started. And then, speaking of getting started, what I would encourage anybody that's interested in becoming knowledgeable about their family history, what have you, let me say a few things. Number one, we really don't know where we are, and we don't know where we've been. You can't. Wherever you think you are, it's relative. It's relative to something else. In this case, your past. And if you don't know your past, you really don't know where you are. You don't have perspective. You're only in the immediacy of time. You don't really have perspective. In order to have perspective, you must know something about the past.
Well, why do you think that disconnect is? Because it's really prevalent, especially in the African American community.
Partially because of the history of slavery, being uprooted from Africa, brought to America against our will, and being taught through slavery that we were not valuable, that family relationships were not valuable. We were being split up. The men were being treated like stud bulls. The women were raped at will. So the notion of family had been brutalized and it became very fragmented. Even so, in recent generations, you still have men going around bragging about how many babies they have. That's a carryover from slavery. A guy was treated like a stud. He was handsome. He was built. He was physically together, then he would be, many times he'd be a stud. Just like you breed cattle with a strong bull, the best bull out there. Same kind of mentality.
That's interesting too, because in tradition in Africa, the families are huge. They have a lot of children, but it's tradition. You don't ask you don't ask a father how many children he has. That's like taboo. So it makes sense what you're saying, because here, even if the families get big, it's like we see it as a badge of honor. Where there, it's like, that's none of your business, and you don't even ask me, because it might still be growing.
Yes.
My tribe might still be growing, so that's interesting.
Well, yeah. So that's that to me. I believe that is a carryover from slavery, and so we have not valued the family relationships as much. You got too many guys out here having babies and being proud about how many babies they have, but they ain't taking care of the babies. They're not taking care of their children. So, and then some of that also relates to the lack of respect for elders. That is, we won't be able to advance as families, as communities. We won't be able to advance unless we come to place high value on eldership.
Unless we get to advance off of where our elders took us.
Yeah. You can't live 50 plus years in America and be black and not have some life lessons worth sharing. There's a saying, teach them early what we learn late. That bears repeating. Teach them early what we learn late. So important that the elders be respected, because they have decades of experience, and there is no substitute for experience.
Yes,
there
absolutely.
is no substitute for it.
And you do find people, at least older people, having that awareness and trying to even rekindle that, because with Ancestry.com, with researching your DNA, and then what's the show where you find out what your heritage is, finding your roots, there has been at least a recharge of people trying to explore those.
Genealogy is one of the fastest growing hobbies in America. It's one of the fastest growing hobbies in America. Speaking about elders a little bit more, I've been studying and researching my family for decades. And early on, I came to a perspective about genealogy that I wanted to gather the values, the life lessons, the pearls of wisdom. I wanted to gather that up as part of my research of the family history, because I wanted to be able to share that. To me, just finding out the names and the dates and the fact that somebody got married and had so many kids and they went to school and had a certain profession, that's just surface. And I wanted much more than that. So more recently, I reached out to the elders in my family and said, send me your favorite scripture or a favorite saying or pearl of wisdom that has helped you and as you traveled your journey in this thing called life. And tell a little story about it. It doesn't have to be long, about why, how this has been useful to you as a guidepost for you, so to speak. So I called it, so I collected these sayings from the people, the elders in the family. Some of them were things that they came up with themselves, but mostly it was things that they said, this is what my mom would say, this is what my dad would say, my grandpa would say, this, that, and the other. So I gathered that up and I compiled it into a booklet. And I don't know if you can take a picture of this maybe later, but a family treasury of life lessons and pearls of wisdom. So this was my attempt to record and codify the wisdom within the eldership of the generation I'm in. So that's part of what I had been interested in for decades. But it's more recently this year, I actually reached out, pestered a few people, said, I didn't ask you to write a book, volumes or something. Just send me a paragraph.
Right.
And those who did it, let me see about how many were there. About 15.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I got 15 collected little short vignettes or stories.
Nice.
And the rest of those knuckleheads, I sent them a digital copy.
Uh-huh.
But the ones who actually submitted something,
Got the real.
I spent my own resources and had these things. The little book was made up, and I sent them a hard copy.
Nice.
They got the real deal. The rest of them, they can look on their computers and their phones and see what they like. So that's part of it. But let me go a little bit further if I may.
But before you do, how now will you get that to the youth in the family in the next generation?
I trust that particularly the ones who contributed, their names are in there, what they wrote. I trust that they're showing their kids and their grandkids. Look what I had to say. I'm in a book.
I see.
Yeah.
Because that is so very valuable, like the wisdoms that your elders are able to leave behind, because you don't have to keep learning the same lesson that somebody else learned in their own generation. It's like, why do we have to recreate the wheel?
Let me go over that a little bit, because that's the essence of where I'm coming from in terms of genealogy. The basis of every science is to record. The basis of civilizations is to record. Why is that? Because each generation ought not have to start from scratch. It's essential in the scientific arena that you record what the experiments, the results, the principles of operation that you have discovered. You record that so the next generation of scientists can verify. They can verify that the principles, the laws of operation that you discovered are in fact valid, reliable, and they can also maybe say, well, he's had a PhD. I read some of his books. I don't need to verify. I want to just simply take off from where he stopped and add to it. So the scientific community is constantly recording and documenting so that the next generation of scientists can add and further the research, further the discoveries. So to your point, my dear sister, my thoughts and brother is that we need to, as families, we need to record our experiences, particularly our struggles, at the crossroads in life. How do we make these decisions about schooling, friendship, money, health, children? How do we make those decisions? What values did we use? What results did we get, for better or worse? Because we need to learn from our mistakes also. Yeah. So if we're consciously thinking like that, then each generation can advance based on the knowledge from prior generations. So that's part of my goal, and that's part of the reason I did this particular booklet, is to do some of that, so that they shouldn't have to bump their heads on the same rocks. Yeah. We should teach them early what we learn. Again, what we learn late. It's critical, and that's one of the values of eldership. Is that as an elder, I can tell you, I've seen that movie before. I've traveled that road multiple times, and I know it's bumpy. But if you insist, proceed, proceed, because life will teach you. If you don't pay attention, the great creative intelligence will give you a different form. But the principle remains the same, but it'll come in a different form. So, as a wise teacher I had, one of my mentors was, we called him Master David Berry. he was teaching metaphysics on 47 King Drive in the early 1970s. And he would say that the world's a schoolroom. We are here to master our lessons. So as I've matured in my own studies and spirituality, I approach every day that the Creator is presenting me lessons. The Creator is presenting me lessons every day. I'm consciously aware of that, and I'm looking for my lesson. I'm looking to learn. As they say, the blessing is in the lesson. I'm looking to learn from these experiences that I'm exposed to, to live a better life, to be a better person, be a better human, to be a better part of the creation. So, but let me, if I may, I want to. Sure. Okay. If I may, I want to go back about getting started with your genealogy.
Yes. That's where I was going to.
Yeah. The way to get started, first and foremost, is to interview the elders. No man knows his last day. The records, the public records, will be here. The records that the government's keeping, that will be here, but the elders may not be here next week, next month, next year. So it's important to interview them. And I just want to refer to a few questions that I suggest that people consider. You can start off very, very, very lightly. Favorite jokes. Some of the elders like to tell you their jokes. Favorite food, hobbies and pastime, TV program, maybe a book, but whatever they might have done, did or currently do for fun. That's just the kind of, let's say an icebreaker to loosen things up. Sure. They'll be glad to talk about oh man, I love my macaroni and cheese. I love the way my grandmother fixed them greens, man. Nobody did it like her. So that's just to loosen things up a little bit. But as you gain their confidence and they're willing to confide in you, then you can dig a little bit deeper. And I'll give you a few things in terms of family history. The name of who owned your people during slavery. Who was those folks? What was their full name? What was that family? Or if you had people who were free, how did they? I think what they call manumission. Did they were their freedom granted to them at some point, or were they always free? So you want to know some of that history around that. You want to know stories that the elders or you recall about slavery times, or experiences of discrimination and segregation. In my experience in talking with other genealogists, most of us don't have the stories about slavery time. Part of that, I think, is for what they call post-traumatic stress. It was so unpleasant. Who would want to recall the horrors of that? Who would want to hold on to that? Who would want to share that? It's kind of like when veterans come back from combat. They don't talk about that. They don't talk. If you bring it up, they don't want to talk about it. Yes, yeah. They try to switch the subject. So, but it would be helpful to understand what was that experience like. If somebody has heard the stories, what was that about for that family member? How did they or their elders get going? So we came out of slavery, emancipation, 1865, so-called freedom. What kind of freedom was that? We had no money. We had no land. No money, no land, no guns. And we couldn't read or write. For the most part. 90% plus, I'm sure. What kind of freedom was that?
Right.
So how did our folks get going? That's one of the questions you want to ask the elders. Have they heard stories about how people started acquiring land? Maybe starting a business? How did they get the resources to migrate? It took some money to migrate.
Yeah.
You didn't walk all the way from Mississippi. So you got most people end up getting on a train and what have you. But how did they get going? So the vast majority of people, according to my research, they were sharecropping.
Mm-hmm.
Sharecropping was one itsy bitsy step above slavery.
Right.
You sign a contract, but you can't read it right.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
You buy the seed. He's charging you for the mule.
Mm-hmm.
He's charging you rent for the little shack you got. You owe him for the flour and the meal and what have you you buy from the plantation store. And at the end of it, the man is going to tell you that you come up short.
Mm-hmm.
You got them boys, they're going to be a year older the next year. They're going to be a little bit stronger. Maybe you can get a little bit. You might be able to make even, at least break even next year, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the sharecropping contracts typically were abusive.
Mm-hmm. But it was the opportunity that was open.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were signing.
Mm-hmm.
How you going to argue with the white man about the count?
Mm-hmm.
About even in the accounting. And if you can't take them to court, you didn't have the money to pay a lawyer, you didn't have the means to do anything really about it.
Mm.
So we were being abused again. It was just one small step above slavery.
Mm.
So ask them about that. How did they get started? It's a story about that. There's lessons, a whole series of lessons that could be uncovered about survival.
Just resilience.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things I love about my people. Mm-hmm. We do a lot with a little, and we make a way out of no way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what spooks them.
Mm-hmm.
They know the traps. They know the barriers, the hurdles they are put in our way.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did we survive, we have strived. We have strived in spite of it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the stories. Let me see. Do you have keepsakes like jewelry?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing my father's ring.
Mm-hmm.
It's a keepsake. But for me, it gives me power.
Mm-hmm.
I think, what's the word?
Amulet.
Amulet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an amulet for me.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me power. When I think about my dad, how did he get the resources to come up with a nice diamond ring that he would wear with some pride? I wear it in honor of him.
Right.
It's a way of me paying homage to his memory.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there any jewelry passed down through the family? Furniture. I have an older brother that passed, and I have a nice cocktail table.
Mm.
Yeah, it's in a prominent place in my living room, but it's part of. I see it every day. I think about him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Weapons.
Mm.
I have a weapon that he had.
Mm-hmm.
I have.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously pictures of ancestors.
Yeah.
So when I was interviewing the elders in the family, one of the first things I would do is get copies of the pictures of the ancestors and ask them to know anybody else that had pictures of the ancestors.
And explanations of the pictures, right?
Huh?
And explanations of the
Oh yeah, who they are,
Yeah.
how they're related,
Mm-hmm.
what's the blood, what's the kinship relationship.
Mm-hmm.
To me, naturally, but for me, if you know me, then you can figure out the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an interesting story to make sure.
Yes,
I'll try to get rather quickly. So I was visiting one of my father's first cousins. Her name was I called her Aunt Mary. Last name was Gaddis, I think. So I was visiting with Aunt Mary. She was sweet soul.
This was here in Chicago?
Here
or
in
down
Chicago. Visiting her. It's my first 1997 or something. My first year trying to do some research.
Mm-hmm.
I visited Aunt Mary. And we were talking, chit-chatting about different things about the family. She stops and she goes to the back of the house and grumbles around. And she comes back with a picture. It's about that big. It's metal.
Mm.
So I'm looking at it, and she said she thought it was Mary, a woman named Mary, who would have been like her grandmother. But it's metal. I had never seen a metal picture, so I thought it was. I thought somebody had taken the picture and somehow chemically transposed the image onto a piece of metal.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, became knowledgeable about older technology in terms of photography. This is what they call a template.
Oh, okay.
The picture is actually, is the picture.
Printed on the...
Yeah, it really is. That's the picture. The image is on the metal, not transferred. It's on the metal. So so she thought it was Mary. She thought it was her grandmother. Turns out, the best I can tell, it's not her grandmother. It's her great grandmother. I knew from my research the age of Mary, how long she lived, and what period she was living in, and I said at first I said okay. I didn't have enough evidence to refute it. But I said, this lady's picture is an elderly lady, and Mary wouldn't have been this old.
At that time.
Now that she aged prematurely. I said, well, I got to go with that. So all I know is Mary. So after I did my DNA test, one of my cousins, Carl McMillan, reached out to me, and he told me that Mary, the one that she was talking about, had done an application to be recognized as a Choctaw Indian.
Okay.
And in the application, she had to give her lineage. How did she connect it? So Mary's mother was half Choctaw, a woman named Elmira. And Mary's grandfather was a man named Mr. Gillum. She couldn't remember the first name. And the mother was Lucy and Mr. Gillum, and they had a child named Mary. So this Mary wasn't old enough, but her mother Elmira, who was half Choctaw, was old enough. And as soon as you see the picture, you see the Indian features. So Mary was 1/4, and she didn't fit, and she wasn't old enough. Her mother Elmira was old enough, was born in 1811, died I think 1896, and she was old enough. The technology for templates was around the time of the Civil War. That's when it was most popular. She'd have been old enough. And you can really see those strong Indian features. So I've attributed the picture now, I think properly, to Elmira. So that's important, getting the pictures, collect those pictures, and get those obituaries.
Do they have any obituaries of relatives? Yeah,
get the obituaries. It's one of the few documents outside of the public records, outside of the government records, that you will find about our people that survives. It gives you a sense of their personality, sense of their interests, their hobbies, whatever their pursuits may have been. You can find some of that sometimes in the obituary. You're not going to find that in the government records.
And the elders usually have a box of them.
Yes, yes, especially the women. The guys may not keep up with that, but many times the women do. And when they pass, if you're not careful, if somebody is not taking an interest in it, they'll get dumped. This stuff gets thrown out every day. So I immediately start collecting the photos, and I started collecting obituaries. Currently, I have over 70 obituaries. So, now that we got all this technology, when I first started, I'd have to go take the picture of the Kinko's and start make a copy. No, you pull out your phone, shoot it. Shoot all the pictures shoot pictures of these ancestors' pictures. Boom, 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 boom. Do a recording if you can, so you can talk right on this picture of this person, who this is. Picture number 1, picture number 2. Same thing with obituaries. Make copies, take pictures, because sometimes they don't want to turn loose the pictures. Understandably, they turn them loose, they never get them back. Obituaries, they give them, they never get them back. So get the pictures of obituaries. Where are the ancestors buried? I can't speak for nobody else, I can speak for myself. It's sacred ground. It's sacred ground. When I go to a burial site of my ancestors, I'm very conscious that there was a large gathering of family members present in that spot, in that space. It's sacred ground. I'm interested in attaching to that vibration. So find out where they were buried. One of the things you can do is you can write off to the Bureau of Vital Statistics for any state. If you know the death date, you can get the death certificate.
Okay.
The death certificate typically will say where the person was interned, where they're buried.
Nice.
Now you can go for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you a story about that. I was interviewing long distance by phone my Aunt Bernice, my father's sister, one of my father's sisters, Bernice. She told me I was wearing her brain cells out. So she told me I need to talk to the cousin Bernice up in Jackson. I said, I didn't know we had no cousin.
She tapped out on it.
Yeah, she said, yeah, let me get her number. You can call and talk to her. And so when I reached out to cousin Bernice in Jackson, Mississippi, Bernice Stimley, turns out she was up in age when I reached out to her. She was probably approaching 90 then. She lived over there over 100. So her daughter gets on the phone, kind of protective, who's a stranger talking to my mother,
Talking all fast.
Asking all kind of questions about the family. So her daughter was named Penala, and Penala faxed me at the time, a copy of the birth and death dates out of a family Bible.
Nice.
So my great grandfather, my father's grandfather's name was Bob Cole. So Bob Cole and his wife Eliza had 10 children, and all their birth and death dates are listed there, and his birth and death date is listed. So I had his death date. I knew about how to get his death certificate. I wrote off to the Bureau of Vital Statistics in Jackson, Mississippi, and got his death date. From his death date, I had the means, I had the time, and I had the interest. I got the first thing getting out of Chicago, picked up a car out of Jackson, drove out to Newton County, Mississippi.
Wow.
And it said that he was buried in the Newton area. I knew he had lived in Newton. I'd already looked him up in the census. I knew he had lived in the Newton area. So I pull over. I see a guy, an elderly man in the road with a young woman. I pull over. I said, "I'm looking for an elder, community elder." So I told him I was doing some family history research, and my folks came out of that area and asked me, did he know what Shiloh Baptist Church was? Because my great-grandfather's buried over there. He said, sure, I'll take you on as soon as our husband comes. So he took me on out there, and sure enough, there was Bob Cole, next to his wife Eliza, and several other children, and a few of the grandchildren buried at this cemetery. I went into town, small town, Newton, Mississippi. It's between Jackson and Meridian. Went into town and went to the newspaper office because I had heard that Bob Cole had lived very well. He had land, he had houses on the land, and highly respected. I thought it was,
Yeah, legends.
hearsay stuff, People talk like this man. Back in the 1930s, had land and highly respected in Mississippi. So I went on to the newspaper office. I said, this man, did they make him out to be? Did my family talking about these cousins talking about all he is? Just maybe it's something in the newspaper about him when he died. Maybe be on the back page or something. So I went to the newspaper office and he said, Mr. Cole, if we kept papers back in here from 1931, we wouldn't have no room to do no work. He said, but you might be fortunate. Some of the old papers had been microfilmed some years ago, and they're down at the local library. I went to the local library and started looking through the microfilm. He died June the 1st, 1931. The paper came out like on a weekly basis, small town paper, or bi-weekly or something. The June 4th issue, a few days after he died, his death notice was on the front page.
Wow.
On the front page. 2 columns long. Highly respected colored man recently passed. I walked out that library holding my head a few inches high. I said, my God, look at here. So they talked about not only did he own a considerable amount of land, he owned all his homes debt free.
Wow.
His character was one of honesty. He was thrifty, but highly respected by everybody, white and black. So that's a story about getting the importance of the obituaries, importance of getting those family Bibles where it's dated about who was who was born when, who died when, so you can get those death certificates and find out where they were buried at, and go and pay homage. Speaking of paying homage to burial sites, a cousin of mine had told me, Harriet had told me there was a burial site on some family land down in Mississippi. And she remembers a kid when they were always in the summer. That was a common thing for the kids to go south over the school break. So she talked about she used to have so much fun going out to the family land and all that. So another older cousin named Marvin still lives down there. So I called him up and said, Marvin, I understand there was a burial site on the land out there. He said, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I said, I want to see that, man. And so I went down to Mississippi again. Met up with Marvin, drove out to the family land. It's between, it's a community called Hillsdale. It's between Poplarville and Lumberton, right off of Highway 11. So we drove out there, pulled off the road, walked, got into the gated area, walked back in the woods. And then we were walking for a while. Then he stepped off into this real thick woods. Just stepped off into it.
You from
I'm a
Chicago.
city boy. I'm thinking, man, hold up, man. Give me a minute. I can't just do that, what you just did. So the woods were really, really thick. So finally I got in there and we're looking around for these headstones. And he said that after about 20 minutes or so, these 20 minutes, I just had to ask him. I said, man, what are we looking for? I mean, are they flat to the ground? Because sometimes headstones are flat to the ground. Or are they standing up? He said, no, they're standing up. So here's what I did. And this is going to bring it home. I said, John and Phoebe and Morris Ladner, I come all the way from Chicago looking for y'all. Now, I need some help. I called out their names. I said, I need some help. Within a minute, I walked onto a path. I saw a path. I walked up that path, and there they were. So Phoebe and John.
And you found them, not even the
not even the cousin. No, not even the older cousin. No. So, but he didn't call out their names.
Right.
Yeah, I called out their names. And that was organic. That was not something I had thought about or pondered. It just came to me that I need to speak.
Yeah.
I need to speak to them in the present term, like they still are yet with me somehow. And so Phoebe and John are buried behind a very decorative wrought iron fence. He had a sister named Mary that loved him and his wife dearly. And Mary had no children, and she had a lot of land. And she honored her brother and his wife by placing a beautiful wrought iron fence around their gravesite. John's father was a man named Morris, and he was buried nearby. And he had a really nice headstone, a real nice stone, the quality of the stone. With some, if you go visit old seminary, some of the stones they decay. They're soft stone. Morris's land is a very hard stone. So recently I went to a family reunion, just this past summer. And some of the cousins, I was saying we need to go to the burial site.
It was in Mississippi.
In Mississippi. Same one I'm talking about. We went out to Gulfport for the family reunion. No, nobody interested in going out there, Anthony. Besides the snakes. I said last time I was out there just a couple of years ago. They have cleared. They've cleared the area. The leaves out to it. If it's a snake, you can see it. It's not like tall grass like it used to be. It's just like you mow your own lawn or something. Oh no, ain't nobody interested in that. I'm telling you, ain't nobody interested. I said, I'll tell you what I want you to do. I want you to announce that I will be meeting up with those who are interested in the lobby on Saturday morning at 9:30 for those who are interested. Just announce it, please. Put it in the program. Put it in the update for the family reunion. I think we had about 7 or 8 cars to go.
Wow.
They were glad to go. And they was glad to hear me tell some of the family history right there at that site. So John Ladner had got 160 acres through the Homestead Act. His father Morris had got 160 acres.
Oh, wow.
His sister had got 160 acres. His sister Mary got 160 acres. His brother Abraham had got 160 acres. The first one to get it was the old man, Morris. My hunch is once Morris got through the process,
He taught everybody.
he passed that knowledge, that wisdom on to his kids. And they all got 160 acres of land through the Homestead Act. I got the certificates.
Beautiful.
You can write off to the land records, Federal Land Records Office. If you have the name and the date and the county, you can get those certificates.
Right.
So let me, if I may continue this a little
I
bit more.
just want to ask,
Sure.
who in your family is carrying on this historical process? Because that's something that is so vitally important
Well,
for there to be like a griot, a storyteller.
Yes, it needs to be continued. And that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier
Sure.
about from generation to generation passing things on and building on it. So I've done quite a bit of research. So my daughter is a child went on these research trips with me.
Okay.
So we'd be in the courthouse. I said, look at those marriage records. Do you find any codes in there?
Oh, okay. So she was active.
Yeah. I said, holla. So we made copies of them.
Nice.
So she has some interest in it. I have a cousin named James. We call him Jimmy. He has a keen interest in it. So he's researching the family. And he, the DNA test, all that stuff. He's hooked up with other people researching the family, so they're active, they're engaged. But to my knowledge, I'm writing.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else is actually writing.
Yeah.
I'm writing. I'm doing stories. I'm gathering information. I'm writing stories up, man.
Which is important.
So we do have some young people doing it. My daughter is not an active researcher, but she has an interest. She understands the importance of it.
You can surely pass what you've started to
Oh,
someone else.
Yeah, I have two daughters, so and I'm fairly computer literate, so I got everything in folders, digital folders. So I sent them all that stuff and said, hey, this is the family legacy. You filed this away properly. And I'm like, as the time goes on, I send them new stuff.
Nice.
Add this to the folders, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what they're doing, but I do send them, it's a kind of like a family repository.
Sure.
For them to keep up with this kind of stuff.
Well, you just told, you said it on the airways. Now it provides them a little more pressure. If they
Right. So that is important. So I have that, and they have my passwords to my computer and to my accounts, because anything that's important to me, I've digitalized it, and I've been retired since 2011, so I've organized all this stuff. It's in folders. It's not.
How many generations were you able to?
Well, I can go back to the early 1800s. Nice. I can trace for my grandkids. I can trace them back 7 generations, at least 7.
Beautiful.
And so I did the diagram for my grandkids. I gave them a diagram tracing them back 7 generations through just one line of the family. So that they have that. Okay, so let me pick up a little bit more. I don't leave something out. So, any significant documents noting the ancestors' accomplishments, land deeds. I just talked about some of that. Service records, not about people working in service. Here's some records that we're not necessarily proud of, but they are records. Get them prison records. Get those court records. A lot of times, we were caught up in some situations that we were arrested or sent off to prison. They weren't. We were set up. They wanted to blame somebody, and they just grabbed a brother off the street, and you the one. It's your day. You going to prison.
A lot of times, that still happens.
It still happens. So certificates and licenses, degrees, obviously, newspaper, and magazine articles. You might be surprised. I was shocked to find the barcodes. Death Note was on the front page of the paper.
2 columns.
And I had no idea. I was genuinely shocked. And please, you can ask them. This is more, in-depth type of interviewing. They have to be prepared and to think about it maybe a little bit before you can just drop it on them. Describe a major choice at a crossroad in life, for better or worse. What was the positive or negative outcome? Again, we need to not only learn about the good stuff, we need to learn about the stuff we don't want to repeat. Think about the 10 Commandments. Most of them was talking about what not to do. What not to do. You can just avoid them nights. Life can be okay. Ask them to share a favorite scripture, prayer, or poem. Again, a family treasure of life lessons and pearls of wisdom. And finally, around this area, if particularly the elders are currently living, we need to sit down, gather up our clan, gather up our children and our grandchildren and our siblings, as big as we can. We need to take a professional picture. Not just a snapshot. We need to pay some money, go out there at the Japanese garden or something, a nice beautiful setting, a waterfall, a bridge, and line everybody up and take some professional photos, group photos, and then some individual. The reason being, think about how you cherish those photos of the people of your ancestors, especially those group photos. It's 3 generations. It's the kids, the parents, and the grandparents, or the great-grandparents. We need to do that so that when we are passed on, they have a reference point for us.
Sure.
I see you have pictures of elders or community members that passed on here. It's kind of a shrine, kind of an altar. I just organically started doing that. I didn't meet with nobody, talk about it. I just started putting my pictures up. I talk to my ancestors every morning. That's my spiritual practice. I ain't got no. You see, I don't have no qualms about it. I'm telling you, I talk to my ancestors every morning. I go by 3 or 4 generations. My direct line, I call out their names. As long as we call their names, they're not forgotten.
That's right.
I ask that I may conduct myself properly, in order, and I make them proud, and that they can rest in peace. Because I'm handling my business. I can't speak I'm handling my business. So I tell you something kind of funny. My daughter knows me, obviously. Particularly my youngest daughter. So she was trying to get a job. She wanted a job a certain kind of way, just, another. You know what my daughter told me? She said, "Dad, I want you to speak to him about me." Tell him, Dad. Tell him what I'm trying to do.
Do that, do that.
She said, "Cause I
know you have a direct connection."
Yeah. I know you be talking with him. You put a word in for me, Dad. Put a word in for me. Because sister trying to come up, and I got some real clear goals and dreams. Take care of that for me, Dad. I said, I got you. There ain't no issue. I definitely got you. So I'm just giving you a little anecdote about.
And that's the power of the ancestral spirit that anyone can invoke on their own. Like, you don't have to have professional training. You don't have to have even all of the record keeping that you have. It's like just the acknowledgement, just the respect and the honor that they know, and they can build that connection with you very easily.
Yeah, I mean, the power of the ancestral spirit is something that we deal with and talk a lot about in the Earth Center, but even when, you go into communities in indigenous Africa, you find that the ancestral spirit always chooses at least one in the family to carry that for the family. And you clearly, are the one that has that responsibility. And that's why it's so important to pass it on. But it's also important for everybody, because that one person may have been chosen to kind of carry the responsibility, but they end up bringing the family together, bringing the family closer to the ancestral spirit, and then valuing the elders on a different level because the elders are the link. They're the ones that are closest to the ancestors, and they're the ones that can connect us to understanding the wisdom of the ancestors while we're still here.
Yes.
And I'm really grateful that you came and you shared with us, because nowadays in places like Chicago and all around America, we see what we do to our elders in American society. We see how we push them aside. We see how, they're isolated in retirement homes and nursing homes. And you see how, and even now you hear that the suicide rates for elders is going up. Mm-hmm. And we have to proactively confront that in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our families, first and foremost. And this is how you do it, because there's no better authority, expert on your identity, because your identity is linked to your family, and the one who holds the most wealth of knowledge about that is your elders. So I really am glad that you came on the show. I want to give you a chance to show, some of your cherished ancestors before we close. But to all of our listeners, please take this wisdom from Elder Cole and get started. And reach out to your elders, because they're waiting for somebody to talk to. You might have to, inch in and let them know that you're serious enough to where, they'll start opening up. It's not just a one-time call, but it's so important.
It's critical. What you say is so important. You're not rooted. Mm. You're not rooted. You're running loose and running wild. Exactly. If you have not connected with your elders and with your ancestors, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, a person wrote a poem called "Our Elders Are Passing." I just want to read it. Passages. They're beautiful memories. Their knowledge of the past soon will be lost and beyond our grasp. For our elders are passing, so sad but true, and with them their memories and all they knew. Mm-hmm. So locate your elders and schedule that meeting in light of the fact that time is fleeting. Beautiful. So yes, interview them. Let me show you some pictures. Please. This is a picture of my mom and dad. Oh. This picture was taken about 1938, I think, around 1938, around the time they got married. Mm. So I just want to show that picture. My mom's name was Rosa. My father's name was Woodrow. Mm. I think that my mother and dad was just a beautiful couple. Mm-hmm. I could see how she was after him and he was after her. And here's the picture of the template of Elmira. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And you see the Indian features.
Yeah.
See the Indian features on her.
Yeah. And
you see how she's an aged woman. Uh-huh. And she'd have been older. She was born in 1811, so around 1870 or so, 1880. She'd have been old enough to get this picture. Yeah. So one of the things also you'll notice on the picture, I have the genealogy right on the picture. Mm-hmm. Nice. So that if for some reason it gets misplaced, gets lost,
people always know what it is.
People say, "Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's Anthony Cole.
Yeah.
That's my uncle. That's Uncle Anthony. Mm-hmm. Man, shoot, don't be throwing. Let me have this picture." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the genealogy traces all the way down to my sister and I. Mm. Oh, nice. All the way up to Elmira. And Elmira for us is our third great grandmother. Wow. And I have the dates for her: 1811, 1890. Her daughter Mary is listed here, 1844 to 1921. Now see, 1844. Mm-hmm. That's how come I said that she wasn't old enough. Right. She wasn't old enough.
She was maybe 20.
Yeah,
that's definitely not a 20-year-old.
Maybe 30, 40, whatever. Right. So this technology around the time of the Civil War, and that's when it was most popular. But it declined over the years as new technology came on board. I'm sorry. No problem. Here's a picture of my mother's grandfather, George Stovall. Mm.
You look kind of like James Earl Jones.
And as you can see, dressed rather nifty.
Yeah, you do.
One of the things you'll notice about older pictures when you start collecting them, none of these pictures people are smiling.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The pictures was a formal affair. Mm-hmm. It was a serious thing. It was something laugh and giggle about. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until maybe the 1940s or 50s that you start seeing people showing teeth and smiling. Mm-hmm. It was an expensive thing to take a picture, and people were taking the pictures to be remembered. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. To be remembered.
In a dignified way.
Yeah. All dressed up, 3-piece suit. And here's the picture. This is a colorized version. I actually have a black and white. This is Bob Cole. This is the man that when he died, he was his obituary. His death note was on the front page of the local paper in Newton, Mississippi. So those are some pictures.
Thank you.
I wanted to also share with you that you can do picture books like this one.
Yes.
You can go on Shutterfly or just Google picture books, and there's all kind of companies that will take your photos and turn them into picture books. So this is, it's about me, but it's also about
The family.
some of the ancestors and what have you, and about my family. So people, you want to be in my book, you need to be, spending time with me so you can get your picture in my book too. This is the first major writing I did.
Okay.
This is a compilation of just mostly documents for my research. I did this book in 1998. This is 2 years after I started doing my research. But I want you to notice the subtitle. The title is The Ladners. The subtitle is Gathering Your Forces.
Nice.
I'm gathering those ancestral forces. Now, how did I come to that? I can't explain that. That's organic. I said, what am I doing? I'm gathering my forces. So we are not out here alone.
Exactly.
Though we appear as one, we represent the fulfillment of prayers, hopes, and wishes and dreams of thousands that have come before us. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. I trace my genealogy all the way back to the Creator. All those ancestors are just in between.
Yep.
But once to me, to raise your consciousness to that level, they used to talk in the 70s about raising your consciousness and all that. Well, I have a better appreciation for that phrasing. To raise your consciousness to the level where not only you're saying that through the DNA, yet they travel with me day by day. It goes all the way back to the Creator itself. That's the way I look at it. So I ain't never alone. Something pop off. I'm not out here by myself. I bring a host with me. So I don't, being out on the street or something, the brothers come up to me and say, man, it's an error, bro. Ain't no hard feelings. You don't want this though.
Chicago coming out.
Yeah, you don't want this. And it ain't just because I'm telling you I'm so powerful physically.
Right.
You don't want this, man. The karma is gonna come on you. You don't want it, bro. It wouldn't be good for you.
Yeah.
So let me say that, and then I did an autobiography. Because what happened is, doing the family history research, I saw how little I could really find about my people outside of the public record. And I said, okay, when I pass on,
We changing that.
when they come looking for me, they're gonna really find something. They're gonna find about me and about the people around me and what have you, and my ancestors. So that's why I ended up doing a book. And I say in the book, in the introduction, some people say, well, why would you do a book? What an ego. What an ego. What's so self-centered. And I say right there in the book, and what? And what? So what? I'm gonna tell my story.
If I don't value it, who's gonna value it?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell my story the best I can while I can, and hope that it'll be of some service, some usefulness to somebody else along the way. Now, man. So when I first did attempt, it was like maybe 50 pages. Next thing was 70. The next edition was 75. This edition 150, almost 150 pages.
Wow.
I'm documented. I got my favorite sayings, my favorite scriptures, different stories, whatever. I recently did a story, and I'll kind of close out with it. Have any of you guys started using AI yet?
A little bit.
Oh man, it's awesome. It is awesome. To me, it's awesome. It's the best administrative. When I first saw you, I said it's the best administrative assistant I ever had in my whole life. After I started using it for a while, I told my wife it's the best administrative team I ever had in my whole life. So with AI, I gave...
You said you were computer literate a little while ago.
Yeah.
Now you say you got an AI assistant.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's matching up.
Yeah, oh yeah. I get some stuff. I get some stuff done in the AI program. So I turned around and gave it some information about my family.
Okay.
So here's the information, some basic facts about my grandfather and other people. Develop a narrative story of inspiration that puts my people in historical context, considering the struggles they had to face as part of the racism and white supremacy that was being practiced during their era. It did it. So I submitted the story to the, what they call it, the AAGHSC, Afro-American Genealogy and Historical Society of Chicago, for the newsletter, for the fall newsletter. It's long, but I kind of pressed them. They printed it as a feature story for the newsletter.
Nice.
Because their recent conference was talking also about using AI to help with the genealogy.
Okay.
So I said, it's an introduction to the story. I used AI. I'm going to give you an example of how you can use AI to create a narrative that weaves your people into a historical context in light of the struggles that they were facing. So I laid it out. Started with Bob Cole, and he had 10 children. 2 of them were principals. One of them was my grandfather, Wiley.
Okay.
Started first school for blacks in Stone County, Mississippi. Go from there. One of his granddaughters was Bernice, the one I talked to, up in Jackson. Bernice Stimley had 4 children. All 4 of them got law school degrees. 3 of them got law school degrees from Harvard.
Wow.
Phenomenal. They were written up in the Jet magazine in 1974. 2 pages.
Wow.
Further on down the road from Bernice, I talk about myself a little bit. I said, I think I got some of that. so what happened, and I'm really gonna shut up. Okay, 2 things. When I started school, I failed first grade.
Oh, okay.
When I got to second grade, they put me in special education classes. That's how I started. I had to fight. I had to get my own psychology together to say that I'm not a dummy. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm not no damn dummy. Now, I ain't got no business no special education class. And if you had some black people in the damn books, maybe I'd read them. You know, all I see is see Spot run. I ain't interested in that.
I'm laughing, but it's important because that's the path that they put many of our children on.
It was nothing. It didn't turn me on. So I concluded part of what's so important with our children, with our lives, with our families, everything is motivation. We need to be motivated, and it was hard for me to get motivated reading about see Spot run. What the heck was I going to do with that at 6 years old? Nothing. I couldn't. I don't want to keep reading that book.
And I think that's one reason why our children and people in general have such a problem with school when it comes to history, when it comes to even studying genealogy. It's so painful to go back into history if you are relating your history to slavery, but not realizing that your history is so much further, so much deeper, richer. And the fact that even the reason we were selected for slavery is because of our strength, because of our quality. We were the ones to do all of the work because the ones who brought us didn't know how to do those things.
We're great at wood carving. We're great at raising rice. We're still known for that in the Carolinas. We had all this knowledge and understanding of agriculture and what have you in the arts. But what opened me up, I got exposed to Uncle Remus stories. That's black folks. And it's about tricksters, tricksters, people being clever, figuring things out, playing on the psychology of others, their egos and stuff. That was interesting. And then
that got you into reading.
Got my attention. Then Aesop's Fables. Then Book of Proverbs. That kind of got me going. And then I ran into a brother named Shango. and he was a reader.
Mm-hmm.
He was a student,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a library in his house. He had taken an oversized closet and turned it into a library.
Mm-hmm.
I started really reading after that, because he read religiously, diligently, disciplined every day, at least an hour when he came home from work.
Mm-hmm.
That got me into reading. So at any rate, by the time I got back into school, really got going in college,
Yeah.
I was the president of Scholar, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was giving the teachers a flux.
Mm-hmm.
They would stop in the class. Ooh.
Now, how can people get in touch with you or learn more information?
Okay, absolutely. They can get in touch with me at anthony.tonycole@gmail.com. Anthony.Tony, Tony, Cole, Cole, @gmail.com. I also work at the South Museum on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm retired, but I'm there most weekends from 11 to 4. The South Black History Museum and Education Center. So I appreciate you guys for reaching out to me, asking me to come in. I'm glad to talk about these type of things. I hope it's clear that I think it's valuable, it's important. I'm excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to understand that most of us are living a life about that big.
Mm-hmm.
It's about us.
Thank you.
It's about the here and now. It's about the immediacy.
Mm-hmm.
When you start studying your ancestry, your life opens up like this. Because now you're not out here by yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You getting down to your roots and your branches.
Yeah.
You're gathering your forces.
Mm-hmm.
You're gathering your forces
Definitely.
to awakening those elements, those energies.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel. I feel like they're with me. So yes, it's so important that we get a proper understanding on where we've been, so we have a perspective on really where we are, and we decide where we ought to be going.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up teaching school at Chicago State University because I knew my family history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I had never knew that my grandfather had been a principal, I wouldn't have taken the offer as teacher. I wasn't into it. I had never taught. I had never even taught.
Right.
But because I knew my history, I felt I had an obligation when the opportunity presented itself to teach.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's not even just about where we've come from and where we're going, but it's who we are. We don't understand who we are until we understand them. And even, it's just the language. People don't realize how much the language controls the way we see the world, because maybe in our language, in English, I can say I, and I think it's just me in this skin. But other languages and African languages don't function like that. I can't say I without including all of them.
Yeah.
So it's such a huge step to make in life when you realize, like you're saying, when your life can open up. Like
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. The language is symbols how we think, and if you don't have a very big vocabulary, you actually limit your thinking.
Yes.
If you don't have other languages, because the language will represent the experiences of that culture.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. I might mean it's never singular
Mm-hmm.
in other cultures. That I is not a singular thing.
Exactly.
That's the European.
Exactly.
That's that capitalistic culture, if you will. Mine.
Yeah.
So my thinking every day is, how can I conduct myself in such a way to make a meaningful contribution for any and all who cross my path, and most especially my people?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How can I contribute something meaningful for them?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my story for what it's worth for today.
We appreciate it. We appreciate you.
We would love to have
appreciate
you back, and perhaps even do a workshop of some sort, because this is something that I think people would really be interested in learning more in a more intimate setting as well. So we appreciate you coming.
I look forward to it. I'm retired. I'm a giver.
Well,
that's what I've always been a giver, even professionally. I work in the field with human, social service and stuff.
okay.
People have to dream big to go big.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem I see is with these people. So many people, they're not dreamers. They don't have a vision for something big.
Yeah.
They're limited themselves.
But
it's almost like a carry-on from slavery. They don't have a belief that they're capable.
Mm-hmm.
they're not reaching because they think that's for other folks.
You said it. How big can you dream with you?
Yes.
Your life is like that.
I want people to start businesses.
Yeah.
It ain't just why should predominantly the businesses in our community be run by somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
You can't go up to the places up north in the Indian area, the people from India, and open up no soul food restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Or do different things. You ain't gonna open up no Indian restaurant. They say you that's us.
Uh-huh.
But they can come in and fry chicken,
Mm-hmm.
fish, and run the barbecue spots too. And we say, okay,
Right.
tastes pretty good.
Maybe your favorite spot.
Yeah. So I want to see us do more about business. I want to see us, the kids being exposed to thinking of not just about getting a job and a career,
Yes.
but being educated to you can run a business. Whatever you think, what kind of field you think about working in, and whatever company, think about creating a company like that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Or some aspect that can relate to that company's business that you could they haven't thought about, but they could be your first primary customer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm at. But anyway, we got much more to talk about, much more stories to tell. It ain't
more
been told.
episodes.
It ain't been told.
Yeah.
It ain't been told.
Well, we'll get there. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys. I applaud you for reaching out.
Oh,
We appreciate you.
Can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.